My name is Rich Voltz, and I am the IASA Associate Director for Professional Development. Welcome to this webinar titled Focused Informal Observations. Informal observations using my methodology are defined as the following. The evaluator decides ahead of time what will be the focus of the observation and mainly records evidence of that domain and component only. The evaluator would also record evidence of very good or excellent teacher practices, as well as any poor or unsatisfactory teacher practices. So in summary, an informal observation is when the administrator chooses from domains 2 and 3 a specific component that they want to observe when they go into the room to do an informal observation. For example, if the evaluator decides that the informal observation would be centered on 3C, engaging students in learning, then the evaluator would review the Danielson frameworks for 3C prior to conducting the informal observation. I recommend that the evaluator especially review the critical attributes related to the Danielson domain component the evaluator will be observing. In this instance, looking at the slide, the evaluator would review the critical attributes for 3C, as these are the important standards that are used when using the Voltz method for scoring of the teacher. The evaluator may even use a scripted observation evidence collection form to record the evidence in the classroom. If you would like to obtain actual informal observation collection documents, you can go to my website at http://illinoisasa.wikispaces.com. You then need to click on the Danielson Workshop Files link listed in the left-hand margin, and this will bring you to information that I have made available to you related to the Danielson frameworks. The arrow on this slide is pointing to where you should click. After clicking on the Danielson Workshop Files, this is the page that the link will take you to. You will then need to down arrow until you find the files mentioned previously. These are the files that I've been talking about. You can download the files and save the files to your computer, and you can use these files as a basis when you go in to do these focused informal observations. You also may email me at rvoltz@iasaedu.org, and if you have a Google account, I will share templates I have made for both informal and formal observations. I have made forms for all the components in Danielson Domains 2 and 3. And I also have made one form that contains all of the components and is linked to the domain and component you want to record observational evidence on. I hope you've had the opportunity to watch my webinar titled 6 Steps to Effective Teacher Evaluation Using the Danielson Frameworks. In this webinar, I described a methodology to use when evaluating teachers using the Danielson frameworks. The information in this webinar is very important to the understanding of the Voltz methodology for teacher evaluation. Teacher evaluation is a very important function for school administrators and for teachers as well. It has both legal and professional development implications. In order to do this work correctly, administrators need to dedicate the time and effort to perform this important function properly. Multiple observations are needed to conduct teacher evaluation professionally with accuracy. According to educational researcher Kim Marshall, it's laughable to think that evaluating 1 or 2 classes, often atypical lessons put on for the administrator's benefit, can significantly improve a teacher's performance. According to the Measures of Effective Teaching study, teacher evaluation based on infrequent announced classroom visits is inaccurate, ineffective, and dishonest. Teacher observations should look like this. Teacher observations should be frequent, unannounced for the majority of the observations, and occur throughout the teacher's evaluation cycle. They should occur early in the school year to determine how the teacher set up his or her classroom environment. It should occur when the teacher is leading instruction. It should occur when students are demonstrating their learning, and it should occur when the teacher is assessing the students' works. It should occur throughout the school year. In other words, it would look like this. I recommend that the teacher evaluator make 10 teacher observations during a teacher's evaluation cycle. The evaluation cycle being 2 years for a tenured teacher and 1 year for a non-tenured teacher. The chart you are viewing is an example of 10 observations for a tenured teacher. 8 of these observations are informal, 10 to 15 minutes, and 2 of the observations are formal, full instructional observations, consisting of a pre-conference, observation, reflection, and post-conference. If the teacher evaluator does not think they have enough time to conduct the 10 observations, then the teacher should start at the top of the Danielson Domain component ranked list and get in as many observations as he or she can. You can see by this slide that you should start with 3C, then 3B. Also, all formal evaluations should be focused on 3C, engaging the student in their own learning. So this is the ranked order of the focused informal observations I would recommend that an evaluator to do. So if you couldn't get 8 of these informals, you would get in as many as you can using this ranked order to determine the order of observations you'd be making. So you start with 3C, engaging students in learning, then 3B, questioning and discussion, 3A, communicating with students, and then 3D, using assessment instruction. Then you go to all the components in Domain 2. Sometimes you can combine the components in Domain 2 into one informal observation if the teacher is at a proficient or distinguished level for Domain 2. While 10 observations may seem like a lot, in reality it is much more. 10 observations result in 20 blocks of time for the administrator. You learned in the 6 Steps webinar that the evaluator needs to have a reflective conference with the teacher after each observation. My general rule of thumb is that a 10-minute informal observation takes a 10-minute reflective conference. A 50-minute formal observation takes a 50-minute reflective conference. The slide you are looking at is an estimation of the number of observations per day an evaluator would need to make based on the number of teachers he or she is evaluating. So in the first line, for example, if that administrator had 25 tenured teachers and 5 non-tenured teachers, my plan would require 175 total observations. But remember, 80% of those are 10 to 15 minutes. They also would include 175 reflective conversations. So assuming you can do teacher observation and reflective conferences on 150 of the 176 attendance days, that would amount to 2.3 observations per day. And remember, 80% of those observations are 10 to 15 minutes. The evaluator needs to talk to students when doing observations. I strongly recommend that evaluators ask 3 professional learning community questions during each observation to at least 3 students for each question. These 3 professional learning questions are the following. Number 1, what are the students learning today? Number 2, how will the teacher know that the student has learned it? And number 3, what will the teacher do if the student does not know it? In summary, the teacher evaluator needs to make multiple observations to ensure proper due process and professional development for the teacher. These observations should be focused, that being the evaluator deciding before entering the classroom what the evaluator will concentrate on for evidence recording purposes. The key concepts in these observations is the reflective conversation between the evaluator and the teacher, during which the teacher is encouraged to reflect on their own performance and form a plan to improve the performance to an excellent level. You can read much more concerning teacher evaluations on my blog, which you can find at richvoltz.edublogs.org. I hope you have found this information useful in your work as teacher evaluators.